Ladies and gentlemen, your keynote speaker has a cutting-edge approach to positioning companies, organizations, and brands to be competitive in today's fast-changing environment. It's an edge he's sharpened in transforming, managing, and growing billion-dollar brands for companies such as Anheuser-Busch InBev, Procter & Gamble, and Pernod Ricard Beam Suntory. Most recently, CMO for Daymon Worldwide and Executive Vice President of Marketing and Communications for Mastercard in North America. Here to give his 12 insights to drive your digital transformation. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Andres Siefken.
Oh my God. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, everybody, and thank you for allowing me to talk to you over dinner. GDS has an amazing way of doing events that they just told me that no one is going to get more food until I finish, so sorry for that. But the first thing that I want to do is thank Adam and GDS and also the sponsor for this wonderful night and wonderful location. So let's a round of applause for them. We practiced for that. So as Adam said, I had an opportunity to manage marketing teams in many different companies, especially last two companies, a CMO for Daymon Worldwide and North America for Mastercard. And one of the key things that, talking to Adam, that we discussed is how could I talk from experience and share with you what I learned about digital transformation over the last year. So I put together a short presentation that talks about 12 key insights that I learned, and hopefully they spark some ideas. If you get out of here with one idea, that's great. And let's kick it off. The first thing that I want to talk about is, so you see how things have changed. And in the breakout groups, I was able to listen to amazing conversations about how marketing executives need to evolve. And when I work at P&G, most likely half of this room maybe was not even born or was maybe crawling. So let me show you really quick of how things have changed, so you see why I'm always asking if we are evolving at the speed that is needed. And even coming to my last two companies, always asking everybody, are we really evolving as fast as we need? And are we really taking in consideration how we budget, how we market, how we do media advice and everything is right, considering that the speed of evolution is too fast. At P&G in the late 90s, when I joined, the key thing for us was marketing was about research, was primary research, qualitative, quantitative. We were talking about the first moment of truth. Then we were the first one to actually go and live with the consumer. Sounds very crazy, but we were actually sent to live 3 months with the consumers and understanding and documenting everything and coming back to the teams to develop the strategies. And we were in control. The brands were in control. Where the communication was pretty much one-directional. We were telling people what they needed to buy, and that was it. The only feedback that we got was through research. At AB InBev, when I spent the time there in 2000s, all the way to 2006, and it was a little bit different. Still, we were doing the research, but then now we have the chatting and instant messages came into play. Facebook was born, non-monetized, and one of the key things that was happening at the same time is that private label was growing tremendously. So the balance of power was shifting from brands to the retailers. And for us, the marketing became a lot of B2B2C. So we needed to really do a lot of marketing to the wholesalers and the distributors, for them to go to the retailers and retailers to the consumers. So a lot of in-step marketing, and the reality was that when I joined Daymon Worldwide, which is a retail service company, the balance of power completely changed. We got into recession. Now private label moved from 11% penetration in the US to almost 21% penetration. When we're talking about Europe, some of the countries, even 60% of penetration. For those of you that know retailers like Wegmans, with almost 50% of the products sold are private label and so forth. So it was very interesting. So what we did from marketing, it changed dramatically. You are now thinking about how to compete and how to deal and how to maintain control from a brand perspective. And then at the same time, Facebook and Twitter and some of the companies were figuring out how to monetize. So you are sitting now in the marketing seat, and everybody's trying to monetize. So the whole shift to digital started to really happen. Then I joined Mastercard. And I will tell you, when I joined in 2017, the amount of questions were completely different. I moved from thinking kind of like more traditional into asking myself a lot of questions in terms of, are we digitally first? Or, oh, 1 second, it's not, we shouldn't be even talking about digitally first. Are we mobile first? How do we have the budget split? Are we talking, some people talk digital, some people talk linear. Are we talking linear versus digital? Or should everything be just digital? And then you start going, do we have the right sponsorships in place? Are we activating the sponsorship in the way that they need to be from a digital perspective? Or are we still doing it more from a linear perspective, just leveraging brand ambassadors and sports? So I went through so many questions that quickly realized that the change in the way we actually were thinking or had to think was imminent. And the interesting thing with that as well was that only 4, 5, 6 months later, the amount of questions or the kind of questions were changing dramatically. Because now you are talking about VR, AR, what about IoT? So if you have Mastercard, it's incorporating payments into your refrigerator and into Amazon. And so there are so many things that change. So the speed of change accelerated dramatically. So I look at pretty much like the beginning of my career being kind of like slow moving and accelerating dramatically. And the amount of change in the last 2 years is way more than what changed in the 20 years of my career. So let me share with you the 12 insights that I look at in terms of how do we drive a digital transformation in companies? How can we be successful? And let's start with the first one, which is attitude. And when I'm talking about attitude, it's about embracing the digital transformation. And I know that it sounds very simple and everybody should be doing it, but think about your companies. Think about your teams, your marketing teams. Is everybody really embracing digital transformation? Or do you have an amount of people in your team that are actually defensive because digital went over their head and they don't know what to do? And the company is not helping to take them to the next level, or simply the role needs to disappear because it's not relevant anymore with what the company needs. And that's a big question. So that's from a people perspective. But then from a brand perspective, think about, and you have many brands in here today that they need to change, or they had to change their business model. One of the key examples and companies that I love is National Geographic. Every time that you talk about National Geographic, if I'm a Generation X, if you talk to baby boomers or Generation X, they will say a magazine. The reality, National Geographic is not a magazine anymore. National Geographic is an ecosystem that, by the way, is the number 7 in the world most visits of platforms right now. And they evolved from just a magazine to publishing content to leveraging what they have to actually bring services. Now they have the Explore, and they bring you to amazing locations, and they realize that you like maybe turtles because that's what you search in their site, and now poof, they send you advertising to get you to go to Galapagos. It's pretty interesting how they transform the entire brand experience, and they decided that they couldn't stay just in linear or traditional and go into digital. So think about attitude from a person perspective and people perspective in your team, and also from a brand perspective. 2 months ago, I was telling someone that 2 months ago, I gave a keynote at a conference, and the keynote was about, there were a lot of employees of a company, and actually 2 companies, and I talked to them about learn, evolve, and get out of here. I was very simple. You could have, if you can imagine, the faces of everybody, and that was real. If you or your teams, if you realize if they cannot evolve, they are dragging you down. You need to figure out a way to evolve the team, educate the team, or move out the people that don't want to be a part of the digital transformation. Attitude is key. Number 2 is clarity. and to gain trust. And as marketers, we spend hours and hours talking about getting trust from the consumer. The approach that I'm talking about here is inside out. So think about clarity as getting the trust, first the trust of your people internally. I come from working at companies that are zero regulated, not at all. I could do whatever I wanted, to companies like my last one, which was highly regulated. So if you suddenly say, I want to do Periscope or Facebook Live, or I want to tweet anytime that I want, how do you do it if you are not a regulated company? So the key thing here is to have a very well-defined digital plan that can be socialized with the right people in the organization, that have the lawyers and the communication department involved, so that everybody feels comfortable with the degree of risk that we are taking. And at the same time, that they know if something happens on the negative side, these are the key things that we're going to do to solve it. And that's how we have been able to solve it in the past. And clarity is critical. At the end of the day, we want to gain more followers inside the company than detractors. And you tell me if any of you, it hasn't happened to you, that you go with an amazing digital presentation or marketing presentation, and you go to senior management, and they don't understand what you're talking about. They will tell you, well, what is that? Oh, yeah, marketing jargon, blah, 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 you don't understand. Great. And the reality is that it really takes a lot of time from a clarity perspective to make sure that we speak in a language that is understood by the people inside the organization that might be completely different than the language that we speak to consumers. Actually, you might be able to or have to speak in 2 languages inside of the company. To your marketing team, everybody else, and then to the consumer. So you end up speaking in 3 languages. So it's a critical component here. In the breakout session that we had today, there was a lot of conversation about education. And I'm a firm believer that we are the experts. And look at this room. You guys are the experts. Nobody knows more digital than you. And then if you go back to your companies, you're going to find out that vast majority of the people, unless you work in a technology company, vast majority of the people are not digitally native. And it's our role to take them there. Someone help me. I'm in my late 40s. I will tell you, I'm not digitally enabled. I'm Generation X. But I had to take the time and spend the time with the right people to get me over the hump to make sure that I understand. And that's our role. I'll give you an example of Windows and how Microsoft and how Microsoft they do it. And they leverage the communications and the marketing department to create instructional videos that help not only the employees, but also help the audience understand where the company is heading, what is the vision for technology, how do we do it, what is the role of the technology that we have, and this is how we see. So it's a combination of video, and that's the way to go into their website, and you can look at it. And it's important because they help everybody visualize the future. They help everyone to talk about the fundamentals and get everybody on the same level set, and gain the engagement and the curiosity. So marketing jargon or digital jargon then moves from something that I don't know and I'm afraid of to something that I'm curious about and I want to know more about. And what is our role? And that's our role in terms of digital experts, with marketing, with communication, to really educate everyone in the company. It's one of my favorite ones, and sorry for the picture, but I learned this from the Brazilians. I learned this from InBev. When we merged with Ambev and 3G, first thing that they did was zero-based budgeting. Pretty much we scratch everything, and we look at, and toss everything. We look at starting everything again. My invitation here is not for you to toss your budget, but go do an offsite for a day with your team. Look at your budget, and what would happen if we actually do it like here you have your 100 million or whatever you have, and you redo the entire budget, not thinking of what you had from last year or the commitments that you have, or those sponsorship assets that someone signed 3 years ago for 10 years, and things like that. Are they the right ones? Are they the ones that will help you get into where you are? Especially sponsorship assets that they require many times for you to sign for so many years, and then Then you are managing a budget that are so tight, are so not flexible. Do you have the flexibility in there to look at innovation, to try new things? What about media buys? Look at what has happened in the last 3 years with consolidation. So what will tell you that your media buy is the right way when the reality is that with a digitally first or mobile first strategy, that media buy that you had before, it's not gonna work. Are we talking about Facebook versus everybody else? Or are we talking about how Facebook can work with everybody else? So those are the things, and you can go deep. I would really encourage you to spend a day with your team, and it will really help you think or get new ideas on how you spend the budget. And I have done it in the past. I will tell you, I'm not, people don't like this because it really takes courage internally to fight some of the things that you have already, but it will help to get the company to have a marketing plan that is set for the present and the future and not set 3 years ago for today. It's one of my favorite pictures. I had a chance to live as an expat in the Czech Republic, and one of my biggest pains as a CMO has been the budgeting cycles, and you might actually experience the same. Here we are budgeting for a year. We start like in March, and then we're budgeting for next year, only to find out that when it's February of next year and the things that we budget, they don't work anymore, and things have changed so much. And so how can we potentially work in shorter cycles? What do we do to work in shorter cycles? How do we actually work with finance, or what is the formula to do that? And how do we actually think like a digital clock and not that clock that we saw? How do we seek fluidity in the way that we manage our budgets and envision long but plan short? That's one of the key things that I heard to Sheryl Sandberg from Facebook talk about is around, you know what, think about long term, but the reality is you need to execute short. And how do we do that? How do we do it? It's good to have a very long-term vision or a year or a 2-year vision, but the reality in the digital world is things happen today and next week might be something completely different. Think about what is going to happen when 5G comes into place. Are we prepared? Are we doing things about it? So there's suddenly a lot of other things that we can do. And so leverage technology, and one of the key things is strive for real time, which is my next point. And the way I look real time is that today's marketing is in the present. So what we're doing is we're leveraging past data to be as predictive as possible of the future. And I know that this is a 2013 example. I still love it. And I don't know if you remember 2013, we're watching the Super Bowl, boom, the lights goes off, and someone at Oreo decided to create this fantastic tweet, and it says, you can still dunk it in the dark, power out, no problem, you can still dunk it in the dark. Boom, they got instant recognition, very successful about that. Now, why did I put a 2013 example there? Because I don't see that happening right now. So yes, that happened in 2013. Everybody was like, oh, this is amazing. How many companies are really doing real-time marketing, leveraging what is happening? That's one area which is timing the market, but there is another area which is creative. How many companies are really just creating ads that can be put on the internet and leveraging the technology just to switch it and swap it based on what really works and doesn't work? Or are you just doing a campaign and just pushing, like TV-based campaign and pushing it and let's see what happens? The world is increasingly connected, and the brands need to really interact in the present, and we need to become present marketers, not future marketers, not thinking so much about the future, thinking more about the present. That's a fundamental shift, because if you work back, if someone tells you the fundamentals of P&G or many of the companies, it's about 3-year planning and how you do things. That is good, but 3-year plans, I'm not so sure that they work anymore. You really need to think about 6-month plans, 3-month plans, like a month plan. How do you actually do the things in real time? Number 7, and we have a lot of people here from data, and you're all going to like this, personalization. And when we talk about content, and data should be your best friend. That's a reality. This is an amazing example from Spotify. I don't know if you were able to see it, but look at what they did. What they did is that they look at the data and they find out like outliers on their usage, and they started just putting billboards and digital and all kind of different campaigns. Say, well, who is that? Sorry, the person that plays. The person that plays 42 times the song "Sorry" on Valentine's Day. They have another one that is there is a person that played the Hamilton song for almost 5,000 times. Can you get me some tickets? So there are so many things. They got a lot of recognition about that. And when you look at what they said, Spotify says, for us, data inspires and gives an insight into the emotion that people are expressing. To me, that says everything. And the upside from this is how many companies are really leveraging data. I think that everybody's saying it. I'm not so sure that everybody's doing it. And we have been talking about this for years now. So maybe at least 5 years. We have been saying, yeah, let's buy data, let's leverage your own data, let's gather data, let's create your database, let's overlay data. And the reality is that when you talk to brand managers across the US, you will realize that we are not leveraging data in the way that we should be doing, considering the amount of data and tools that is available right now. Back in when I was at InBev, and we were managing beers and integrated marketing campaigns, 360 marketing campaigns. That's what we talked about last year or 2 years ago. We were talking about omnichannel marketing. I would like to talk a little bit more about orchestration and all touch points. So how exactly do we get to people, and how do we orchestrate those touch points in an integrated way or in a fashionable way? And that's where I'm talking about, for example, media buys. If you are buying media from, call it a Comcast NBC that has so many different channels, are you buying each channel and then figuring out what happens? Most likely that's the way you buy, because that's the way they are set up. Or are you trying to get an integrated buy and then, by the way, bring Facebook on the table and then say, hey, guys, these are my objectives for my campaign and how you guys work together, or otherwise it's not going to work. So that's the critical thing here. I had a chance to work, I had a chance to be part of the board at Wharton when we developed the Future of Advertising program. And this was about 9 years ago. We were thinking about what is the future of advertising in 2020. So we had a lot of executives from different companies participating. And I will encourage you that when you look at content development, when you look at a context, how to actually go to market and orchestrate, look at models. Doesn't necessarily need to be this model, but look at different models. There are different models out there. This one is what the group came up with. Jerry Wynn, the professor emeritus at Wharton, with Catherine Friesen, the head of the program, published this book, Beyond Advertising, that it's available on Amazon. And you can read the model, and the model bringing and illustrating how do you actually bring content alive through different touch points. So that this is, to me, I've used this for years now. It's very effective and helps the team at least to have some guardrails into how to bring things to life. Almost done, and this is maybe what keeps me up at night, seriously, because when you are the head of marketing or a CMO or you're managing a brand, the last thing that you want to happen is that you get at 9 p.m. you get a call telling you that the Wall Street Journal is going to publish an article tomorrow because your advertising was seen on X and X and X, Y and Z websites across things that people don't like, and then you get like 300,000 emails from consumers telling you drop your ads or drop this or drop that. And the key point here is with the key thing here with brand safety is how can as marketers how can we develop a very detailed plan on how do we take risk and how do we actually manage things like, for example, programmatic. So I know a lot of people love programmatic. Personally, I don't like it that much because I cannot control it. And if there are many ways or better ways to control where those ads are going to go, and I can sleep well, then it's game. But the reality is that not the entire time. And same thing when we were talking about Twitter and Facebook and things like that. I will tell you that I got into a place where everybody in the team had a chance to sleep well because we were able to define with compliance, with legal, with communications, a very detailed plan on how to execute and how to execute if we got into something wrong. So, and that actually helps internally. Best in class for me is Christine Lemkau, who is the CMO at Chase. They did a really amazing thing in which they clearly defined their plan for safety, strategy and guidelines, but then they went after programmatic and took it down from 400,000 websites that they were advertising to 12,000. The website that they trusted them more. Still 12,000 is a lot. I think that if you ask many marketers, they will say, well, can you actually keep it a little bit closer? The latest one, they developed their own algorithm on how to do placements on YouTube, because that's one of the platforms that is the most, if not the most difficult platform to control. And the results improved brand safety and reduced fraud, which is kudos to Kristen and team for that. Maybe my favorite part is culture and being relevant, and with having had the chance to manage lifestyle brands, I know that how important it is to be part of culture and not talking about culture. And in digital, I think it's even more important. When you look at what happens today, especially millennials, they want you to take a point of view. And they will tell you to your face. They will tell you, and they will write to you. They send notes to the companies, and they will tell you that where do you stand on the pride parade? Where do you stand on this? Where do you stand on that? And the reality is that you see more and more companies today taking a position, using data analytics for sure to understand the target. But this one, if you are not familiar with this is called Fearless Girl. Was developed by McCann Erickson for State Street Bank. They placed this beautiful statue of a fearless girl in front of the charging bull in Manhattan, and that's by the stock market. And immediately got attention of everyone, and now suddenly you had politicians and all kind of people tweeting and talking about it, and how important it is for women to stand up, and you name it, right? So it went way beyond the brand, way beyond what they imagined. McCann Erickson won the Best Agency of the Year globally at Cannes, and State Street did tremendously well, but they stood for something. They stood for something, and the original idea was to keep that in there for maybe, I think, was a month. I'm not so sure. I think that it's still there. And so it tells you. The next slide, I'm not going to talk about it. You think about it, but you know what I'm talking about. So there is another brand that took a stand, and I don't want to be too polarizing here, but the important thing here is taking a stand, an educated stand. They're going to lose customers for sure, but they're standing for something, and that's what the brand has been all about since the beginning. Number 11, try new things and don't punish. And one of the key things with budgeting has always been to open up the budget and separate a percentage of the budget to try new things. In one of the in the breakout session that I heard someone say that they did it for 5%, which I seriously applaud that you did that, and just 5%, and whatever happens to it, it doesn't matter because we're trying new things. This might be the hardest thing to do because you are always scrutinized and come. If you're in a calendar year, come in July, they want your money. Finance is looking to cut money from everywhere, and they might actually want to come for this. But this actually should become part of the company culture. And as marketers, we need to try new things. And what are you doing with AR and VR and IoT? And I will say it again, what is going to happen with G5? Are you trying things with G5? G5 is coming. If you know G5 on your phone, now you're going to be able to download or they push a lot of data for people on VR and AR that you were not able to do today. So there's a lot of things that we need to start trying, but we need to have the money set aside to do that. Example here, I always look at Amazon Go and what Amazon is doing with Alexa, new things that are going to come from Amazon. Amazon Go, I love it. I had a chance to be there, but vast majority of the brands need to think about what Amazon Go represents in terms of changing the paradigm of how a traditional store will operate. And you don't even need to actually show your credit card or your cash anywhere. It just recognizes you and the whole thing. So play with voice, recognition, and everything. Network. What you are doing here is amazing. Get to know other people that are doing things and network out of your industry. Empower your teams to be creative and innovative. One of my biggest mottos has always been that the best idea comes from anywhere. It doesn't have to come from the agency. And I think that I have seen too many times that when you ask the team, let's put this campaign together, everybody's just looking at the agency, kind of like, well, actually the agency, like King's God over there. When the reality is that you empower your team, the best idea might come from them. And then the agency can help as well. Doesn't need that you pay the agency, doesn't mean that they need to come up with all the ideas. And I have seen it most recently with very junior people in the team coming up with just amazing ideas and executing those. So the last one, and thank you so much for the attention. And the last one is be the driving force. And how do we work together with IT and communication? Sometimes you have digital teams to be one force, a united force. I know it sounds very simple. It is not happening necessarily. You see sometimes that marketers may want to have a P&L. Maybe they don't have the P&L. They run into areas of operations. They run into areas of communications. Now, especially with digital, it's becoming more of a melting pot. Is digital part of communication? Is part of market, or is part of now a separate digital department? So how do we work as a whole team? The picture I put here is the New Zealand rugby team. I don't know if we have any rugby fans here, and you know what this is about, but if you can get these 12 or 14 people do what you're gonna see, why can't we get our teams and marketing and communication and IT to work together? So let me show you really quick what they always do before the games, and this is at the World Cup. So this is traditionally done by Aboriginal people in Papua New Guinea and New Zealand, but the beauty of that is that they actually always intimidate the other team by doing this, and it tells you something. It tells you, imagine if we march like that, like to conquer the world and beat our competitors. How can we get everybody together to do that? So with that, really, thank you so much. Have a great journey. I'm gonna stay here, and we can talk after dinner. Thank you so much. Okay. So you're saying we have time for some Q&A? If
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Anyone has any questions or comments? They're so hungry.
Any questions?
Well, straightforward talk.
Here we are.
Okay.